Good evening. I'd like to call the Lee County Board of Education to order, and I must say this is the most beautiful crowd I have ever seen. The first thing we're going to do is have a moment of silence, please. Now, if we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have been informed that we do not have any public comments tonight, so we will move along to the vision statement.
Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for students in a safe and supportive environment. We are committed to academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Next, we have the Code of Ethics. Mr. Gaster.
The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to an accepted code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board, avoid the solicitation and/or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board, avoid the misuse of public funds, avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Can you get a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the special called board meeting of 10/10/2023, the regular board meeting of 10/10/2023, and the student transfer appeal hearings on 11/1/2023.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And motion passes. Know where that's coming from. Okay. Next on our agenda is we have the chairman's report, and we want the community to be aware. As you know, we have done a performance audit, and we're working on it to make all those suggested changes. We continue to implement those changes suggested by the Evergreen audit. As of now, the number of findings and recommendations that came from Evergreen was 97. The number of findings and recommendations that's already completed and reaching completion is 48, which is 49%, so we're about halfway there. The number of findings and recommendations that would not require any actions is 4. Next month, we will have a more thorough update of what actions we have taken and what we still have to do as well. The next part of the announcement is this board will be going to the North Carolina School Board Association in Greensboro. We will be there on the Monday, the 13th, through Wednesday, the 15th, and we're actually going to take Dr. Dossenbach with us. And we will have core training there that we will be able to share as well online that will assist others. We have a couple more conferences that the board is aware of that they need to look at and see if it's something that they may want to do. There's one the 14th and the 15th, that's in December, and then there's an annual conference that is coming up as well in February. And next, I would like to have Dr. Dossenbach to please come to the podium.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Thank you for all that you do, and we do have a wonderful crowd here tonight, and we're going to honor some of our best and brightest here, and we're going to include teachers and students in that. So first, I'm going to recognize Ms. Patricia Coldren, who is our Director of Recruitment, Retention, and Professional Development, who's going to come forward to recognize our beginning Teachers of the Year.
Good evening, Madam Chair and School Board. Once again, we are here to recognize our beginning teachers of the year. We have one from almost every school. In order to be the beginning teacher of the year, they have to be a second-year teacher. We have some schools that have first and third year, but not second year. But I'm going to call their names, and as I call their names, if they will join us up here, and then we will introduce you to our district beginning teacher of the year that will continue on to compete for the NCAT beginning teacher of the year. And some of them were not able to be here because they're in graduate class. They're tutoring. So, these are our extra achievers. So I'm going to start with Jenny Hackett, Warren Williams. Rachel Harbaugh, Jalen Edwards. Natalie Johnson, W.B. Wicker. Cynthia Abercrombie, Broadway. Katie Bullard, Deep River. Angela Watson, Lee County High School. Amanda Wilkinson, J.R. Ingram. Jessica Tarones, Wesley Middle School. Jennifer St. Clair, B.T. Bullock. Kayla Wabalda, Southern Lee High School. Brittany Fountain, Greenwood. Lindsay Batten, Sandley Middle School. And our beginning teacher of the year for the district this year comes from East Lee Middle School, Julie DeLellis. Julie will go on to compete in the regionals, and then hopefully at the state level for NCAT. We have had our last two have gone to the state level. So we're very proud. The BT staff is so proud of these folks. It's very challenging. And that second year, we're so glad you're still with us. So just congratulations to these guys, and thanks.
Thank you.
Next, I would ask that Leslie Cottrell, our elementary AIG coordinator, come forward as we recognize outstanding geography students throughout the district.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us come here tonight and celebrate a few of our student achievers in the area of geography. So this fall, we've rolled out some advanced learning opportunities for all students in the 8 elementary schools. And our first event was the Geography Challenge. Over 200 students participated and mastered at least one challenge, and approximately 65 separate classrooms were involved across the district. Using Title I funds, we purchased each classroom who participated a lovely, new, and accurate globe, and the students, as they mastered different levels of the challenge, received blue ribbons as they moved through it. So tonight, we have some teacher-recommended, maybe overachievers in this area, and for those students who are here, would you come on up, please? Here, you can just stand here. Thank you. So, thank you. Nice. So these students went above and beyond, not only finishing their grade level challenge, but then when the contest was meant for grades 2 through 5. So as they finished their grade level challenge, they moved through various grade level challenges. Jonah is in first grade, so the challenge was not even made for his grade level, and yet he went on and did, how many challenges, Jonah? 4 different challenges.
Hey, Jonah.
So Lucas, how many challenges did you finish?
13.
13 challenges. Wow. Go Lucas, great. Europe, so he did the European countries. He would like to take a moment, if it's okay, and show you how the challenge worked, if that's all right. We have it here on the screen, and I think it should come up for you. You want to give this a try and show them how it works?
So, wait, so Montana, you just click Nevada. Get one wrong. If you get
He's forgotten what this like.
He's like, what do you mean get one wrong? I didn't do that yet.
you get 3 tries. If you mess it up 3 times, it turns bright red. 1 time, normal red. So 2 times, Colorado. It will then show you.
Please just give another round of applause.
Right here, guys. Jonah, can you back up just a little bit? There you go. All right, everybody looking right here first.
Put your certificate up,
Put the certificate up. Yeah, you gotta shut that off. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, now everybody at mom and dad. And just a little bit. Here we go, guys. Everybody right here. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Orange, shut it.
Thank you. Go back to your.
Ma'am, who was the one that was late? What's his first name?
A dynasty.
A Dynasty? Can we give Dynasty a round of applause too?
If it's all right, I have made a save the date card for the board members for our spelling bee and our Battle of the Books competitions, other times where you get to see students really achieving, so if that's all right.
I hope these young people continue to study geography. It's a big, beautiful world out there, and the more we can learn about it, the more we learn about each other. And I think that education continues way outside of this classroom. Good job to them.
And thank you to our families who came out. We'll give you an out if you want to sneak out, or you can stay all night, whatever you'd like to do.
They're like, we're out of here. Chris.
So while they're making their way out, just a few more updates. I'm going to embarrass somebody in the audience because we've not had a chance to recognize him in person. Could Mr. Newby please stand? I think we got too many. Okay, there we go. For those that do not know, Mr. Newby was voted on by his peers and named our district principal of the year. And of course, Mr. Newby is at Eastleigh Middle School and is doing a wonderful job. Just a few more brief updates. Wanted to make sure that, I know the board is aware, but want to make sure the community is aware that Tramway Elementary was one of 10 schools across the state last week to be honored by the Department of Public Instruction for their excellence in closing the achievement gap in an area, specifically students with disabilities. As a reminder, for those that don't remember, Greenwood won a very similar award last year, so want to make sure we recognize them as well. And we are excited later this week to kick off a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Our construction classes at Lee County High School and Southern Lee High School have partnered with the group, and those students are going to be responsible for building the next 2 houses in our district. And some of our own families in the district are going to be the benefactors of those houses. So it's a great opportunity for our kids to have hands-on experience and also a great opportunity to give back to the community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Jones.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you have before you the August financial report. Also have the COVID report as of the end of August. Board expense report. We'll note in the FYI packet, we do have included the new grant report as well as the fundraisers report that was requested.
Okay, does any board member have a question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ms. Jones. And those in the community, if you need to sit, it's posted on our line as well. We're trying to save trees out here. All right, next we have, our board attorney has nothing to report. We've been good this month. Next we have the committee reports. We will start with curriculum and instruction. Mr. Gaster, please.
Mr. Davidson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davidson.
Curriculum and Instruction Committee met on Wednesday, October 18th at 3:30 p.m. at Eastleigh Middle School. The main and the biggest portion of that meeting, which is or was a very informational and exciting to hear what continues and what is to come. And I really learned a lot of what is going on in our schools, and I look forward to attending this every year if I'm able, and I would challenge the other board members to attend when this is presented, because you will learn a lot that we don't know about unless we're there. And this is a great opportunity to hear the presentations of the school improvement plans. There were 12 schools total that presented. We began at 3:30, adjourned at 5 p.m., an hour and a half, and it went by very quickly. All of our board members received this packet that you have had an opportunity to look at. And just want to highlight a few things, Madam Chair, so that our community does realize the resource that these school improvement plans are, and the information that is shared. For example, there's an overview of the school improvement plan with action steps that follows, including things like a needs assessment, data analysis, programs, funding. Some schools, at least one, included where we've been and where we're headed. A school profile, which has got a lot of great information. Also a diagnostic reflection with more data. Achievement results that were broken down into various groups, attendance, media checkout, parent survey results, and so much more. Again, I learned so much from being a part of that meeting, and it was a great time. It was a long time, but again, it went very quickly. This is going to be, it's on our consent agenda for us to approve, and the next meeting of curriculum and instruction will be Wednesday, November 15th, 3:30 p.m. at WB Wicker. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. And again, I'd like to remind the community, they put a lot of work into this. This is how big it is, but it is online. So if parents say, I don't know what the survey is, the examples of the surveys is in there. What makes this unique and different as well, not only does it have action items in it, it will also tell them who is assigned with that task and what their target rate is. So we're extremely proud of that. Okay, next we have facilities and technology. It's Jamie Ladati. Mr. Ladati, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Facilities and Technology met on October 24th and heard several topics that have been placed on the consent agenda tonight. The first one, it was the consensus of the F&T Committee to approve a 3-year Google Workspace contract in the amount of $121,140. Google Workspace is currently in place for the district with no issues, and a 3-year contract allowed the district to save $28,860. This was passed to the Finance Committee with the recommendation that it be placed on tonight's consent agenda. Second item, it was the consensus of the F&T Committee to approve a 3-month extension of our current contract with Express Employment Professionals to run through January 31st, 2024. This is a temp agency we use to fill child nutrition positions. This was passed to the Finance Committee with the recommendation that be placed on tonight's consent agenda. The third item is the consensus of the F&T Committee to approve a contract for Baker Mechanical in the amount of $151,850 to replace Southern Lee High School hot water heaters. We've got several that are leaking, so it was time to replace them. This was the lowest bid. The funding source is capital outlay, and this was passed to the Finance Committee with the recommendation that it be placed on tonight's consent agenda. Outside of the consent agenda items, F&T Committee received an exciting presentation from our Lee County Cooperative Extension, Bill Stone and Meredith Farr, to partner with Lee County Schools with a farm-to-school pilot program to encourage healthy eating habits and reduce food waste. This presentation is in your board packets for review. This year will be spent on a needs assessment, and then the program will be piloted next year at Southern Lee High School with the hope that it's successful and expands from there. But this is a great community partnership, and I wanted to extend my thanks to Bill and Meredith and the entire Extension office for bringing it forward to us. A couple of final updates on items that were in the past and still being working on. The security entrances at the middle schools and high schools are complete, so that construction's wrapped up. The vape detection systems that we approved last year are being installed as we speak, so hopefully they'll be done soon. And Chris McNeil is getting information together for the Jonesboro site regarding asbestos abatement and demolition, so that should be coming up hopefully on the next agenda. And our next meeting is November 28th at the Hines Education Building at 4:30 PM. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, can I get a point of information? I know that it's been out in the public just a little bit about the Lee County High School Stadium. Is there any update that we could get on that? Any discussion that's happening with the F&T committee?
We did hear a small update on that. I was kind of holding it because I think it's a new
It's on our
business
new
agenda
item,
item, so I was
Detailed
expecting
there.
to speak
Yeah, so-
on that there. Yep.
Let's disregard that for now until we get to that one. All right, now we have Finance Committee. Mr. Rummel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee met on October 24th. As Mr. Ladati stated, so we also discussed that Google Workspace contract. That contract was previously funded by ESSER, and therefore it was renewed yearly. That is switching over to state funding since the new contract is 3 years, so that'll extend past that ESSER deadline. So again, new funding source. And then to repeat something that Jamie mentioned was that 3-year contract versus the single-year renewals will save $28,875 over the life of that contract. And then also the finance department's going to track savings such as that for us to be able to present to the commissioners when we do the board's budget to show fiscal responsibility. So again, that is listed on tonight's consent agenda for approval. The Finance Committee also discussed the same express employment contract, and again, that is to fill child nutrition and custodial positions, and that contract will likely exceed that $50,000 threshold before the end of the year, so that's being requested for approval, and is also listed on the consent agenda for tonight. The committee also discussed, it was just a general discussion on the ESSER funding cliff that everybody knows is coming. So just a couple highlights there. All of our ESSER funds have now been earmarked to be spent, so there's no outstanding funds that we have to find a use for. The bulk of that discussion centered on some of the recurring costs that have been funded by these ESSER funds that will have to have alternate funding sources should we choose to consider those. Keeping those in the future once the ESSER funds are exhausted. And I would just note that administration's working on a plan for that, so more to come there in the coming months. And then the last thing I had noted here was the committee reviewed those new reports, so the grant, the fundraiser, and donation reports that Ms. Jones mentioned that are in the FYI packet. So if anybody's got questions on those, please feel free to bring them up, and we can adjust as needed. With that, the next scheduled Finance Committee meeting is actually January 25th at 5 PM in the Hines Education Building, but I would just note that I feel like we'll need a meeting before that, so that will be communicated as appropriate for open meeting statutes. That concludes my report.
If you end up having to have one, it would be to your best interest to do it on the 28th, the same time that facilities is there. Just thought I'd add that to you. Okay, next we have policy. Now it's Mr. Gass's turn.
Madam Chair, back on October 17th, we had a policy meeting. Excuse me. Some of the policies to be reviewed was use of wireless communication and other electronic devices. After we had some discussion on that, we had used another school district's policy, and it had a little bit more meat in it. And so after a discussion, it was referred to administration to take the current Lee County Schools Policy 4318 and the Granville School Policy and develop a new policy to present at the next committee meeting, which is on November the 20th. And I think between the two policies, I believe that there'll be something that'll be really good that'll come out of that benefits not only the students, but the staff and the parents as well. The next one was evaluation of student progress and final exams. And after that discussion, it was referred back to administration to implement an exam exception option and present that also back at the committee meeting on November the 20th. And the final thing was discussion, board member Rummel wanted to add to policy 2130, which is the board member compensation expenses and travel policy. And it was, of course, supposed to come tonight, but with everything got going on, we've pushed it back to committee for more discussion on November the 20th as well. So that was it for that one. Our next policy meeting is scheduled for Monday, November the 20th at 5 p.m. at the Hines Education Building in the Assembly Room in the basement. Thank you.
The next item we have is the approval of the consent agenda. For the audience, I understand there's 7 items there. That when we do our consent agenda, that doesn't mean that we just blanketly do it. We've all researched it, and we have the huge packets that come with each one of those items. So if there's no discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion for
Madam Chair,
that.
we need to make an amendment to that in reference to number 7, school improvement plans. Southern Lee High School is listed twice. We need to delete that last Southern Lee High School at the very end and add to that Warren Williams. I know it's a minor thing, but just want to make sure it's right in our records, and just an oversight there. So if we could make that adjustment.
Susan, you got that? That's good, okay, that's good. Is there any more adjustments to the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Can I get a-
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We have no unfinished business, but we now have new business, and now we're at the, Vicki and Cindy, I believe, are coming up to discuss the low-performance school plans.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just want to kind of share with you tonight about the purpose of the school improvement process. Not only is it, of course, a state legislative requirement, but the most important piece for us is it's a guiding, living document that drives improvement for every school. Performance measures that help the school keep track of the progress towards their goals throughout the year, and allows the schools to make data-driven decisions. It provides a tiered instructional model that contains interventions that help all students achieve success. There are action steps and indicators, as you've seen in the plans, resulting in building leadership capacity in each building school-wide, not just with the principal and administration, but with teachers and others and parents. Increased participation and membership of school improvement team members such that more voices are heard in decision-making, and also stronger evidence of vision and aligned actions for school implementation of effective practices. And what you will see tonight, what we've already submitted, is a draft of the low-performing schools' school improvement plans. And on tomorrow morning, after you've approved the draft tonight, well, not really approved it, but heard the draft, they will post, each school will post on their website a link to their school improvement plan, and they will take public comments till November 22nd. And they will take those public comments, get back with their school improvement team. If revisions need to be made, that kind of thing, they'll be made. And I believe it's scheduled for December 4th for approval of those, because we have to submit those to the state. Those are the only ones we have to submit, are the school low-performing ones. So what you will see tonight, what you'll hear tonight from the 5 principals are, they will, as you see in the book, they will give you an overview. They've done an extensive needs assessment, but also in the low-performing ones, we have included the comprehensive report, because we felt like for these low-performing schools, that was very important for y'all to see the depth at which they planned. And they have just done, all 17 schools have just done a fabulous job, and have really committed to make sure that this is a living, breathing document that will drive their school improvement. And so now, first up, we're going to have elementary, Wendy Perrell with Broadway.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Wendy Perrell, and since October 2nd, I have the honor of serving as the new principal at Broadway Elementary. Here with me tonight is our SIP chairperson and 3rd grade teacher, Jessica Morehouse. Together, we represent our school and the action plan that we will be implementing this school year to move our school forward. In the few weeks that I have been at Broadway, it is truly evident that the staff and the community members are dedicated to do what is best for our students. It is our duty to ensure that they receive it and we equip them with the necessary success to be successful outside of our four walls of school. To bring about meaningful change, we have committed to improve academic performance, retain quality teachers, and increase parental involvement. Implementing weekly PLC meetings among our teachers is one vital step towards enhancing our academic performance. These meetings allow staff to have collaborative discussions, share best practices, and evaluate the effectiveness of our teaching strategies. On a rotational basis, our topics include standard-aligned lessons, implementation of letters, data analysis, and Kid Talk, which is part of our MTSS process. Teachers are reviewing student data from a variety of assessments to include NC check-ins, iReady, and MClass. We are able to identify the areas of concern, track progress, and align lesson plans with curriculum and the specific needs of our students. Retired teachers, district leaders, and mentors have been able to serve and support our small group instruction to help our teachers grow in that area. This has been crucial for identifying and addressing the diverse learning needs of our students, especially within our subgroups. Results from our 22-23 EOG data show that overall, we only had two subgroups that met expected growth, our African American and our students with disabilities. Our face-to-face letters training, our professional development, and other research-based resources continue to be essential in equipping staff with the tools that they need to address the instructional challenges that we face. Kid Talk, which is a component of MTSS, helps us identify at-risk students, provide additional support, and provide interventions in a timely manner. Needing more time to plan as a team is one of the biggest requests that we have from our teachers. Setting aside dedicated half-day and whole-day planning sessions allow our teachers to develop strategies and lessons that not only work vertically but horizontally among our grade levels. Action steps that we have discussed tonight will help the students meet growth and proficiency while impacting each of our subgroups. Building a strong, dedicating teaching staff is essential for the long-term success of our students. It is imperative that we take action to retain our current educators and support and create a positive work environment for all. Interviews will now move to a team-based approach to ensure the candidates not only are skilled, but their beliefs align with our mission and our values at Broadway. We will continue to extend and expand the Employee and Teacher of the Month program to spotlight outstanding teachers and their contributions. Committees will continue to develop team-building events, appreciation days, and initiatives that enhance the sense of our community. New teachers will receive support through the district and school-level mentoring programs to help them get acclimated with the profession. Conducting surveys will help staff or provide them an opportunity to voice concerns, needs, and suggestions. And then our admin team will address the concerns, provide clarity of our expectations, and help foster a positive work environment.
And we all know the importance of engaging our parents and key stakeholders is essential for our students' academic success. School-wide events bring a sense of community and are opportunities for families to become active in their child's education. Events we have already held include open house, fall festival, family nights that showcase student achievements and projects. Future events include grade-level performances, parent-teacher conferences, movie family night, and curriculum nights. Parent-teacher conferences will be utilized to discuss student progress, address concerns, and set individual academic goals. Online resources that will serve as means to communicate include Class Dojo, Remind Messaging, Blackboard, and social media sites. These allow us to recognize the diversity and provide written correspondence in other languages, especially with our Hispanic subgroup that represents over 41% of our school at Broadway. School newsletters and an updated school website will be an effective way to keep parents informed about upcoming events. Important dates, curriculum resources, policies, calendar, and staff directory. We will also use them to feature success stories and highlight achievements amongst our staff and students. The connection between home and school can strengthen partnership, therefore benefiting the academic performance of our students. By implementing this plan outlined tonight with both commitment and dedication, we look forward to moving out of the low-performing status. It is our belief that Broadway Elementary can provide a brighter future for our students and our community as a whole.
Does the board have any questions? Well, Wendy, welcome to
Thank
Broadway.
you. It's been a pleasure.
And I know you guys have a huge challenge ahead of you, but you got this.
Thank you. We appreciate the support from you, Madam Chair, and the Board of Education.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Stephanie Clark, and I am the proud principal at BT Bullock Elementary School. And I am here with the Lee County Teacher of the Year and our sit chair, Taylor Waters. I have been the principal at BT Bullock for 10 years, and we have scored a score of a C on the North Carolina report card for all 10 years. Since 2018, BT Bullock has met or exceeded growth based on our state growth measurement system. Last year's results on the end of grade exam in grades 3 through 5 were an anomaly that resulted from some very complex challenges we faced within our school. Those barriers have been identified and addressed, and as we head into this school year, we are poised for success with our school improvement plan. The BT Bullock school improvement goals are aligned with our district goals: to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers, to increase parental engagement, and to increase academic achievement.
Good evening. So research supports that the single most determinant academic achievement for growth for students is to have an excellent educator in every single classroom. So our first SIT goal is to retain highly qualified educators. Throughout our building, we have these highly qualified educators, and we want to celebrate them. So as a SIT team, we're looking to support, to celebrate, to highlight, and replicate some of these really great strategies these teachers are using. Our administration is finding these things in classrooms and sharing them out with staff. We're also supporting staff by celebrating their goals that they're making themselves. And our administration is also checking in with beginning teachers and new staff to just check in, see how they are, and to make sure that they're moving forward with student success instructionally, in addition to having peer mentors. However, no one can celebrate teachers quite like students. So we're providing opportunities for our students to celebrate our teachers, to help our teachers connect back to their why, and to help teachers to see the impact that they're making on their students. We also know how vital it is to have parent involvement in student success, and we're wrapping that around our push for literacy. We're helping to provide tools for teachers and the staff to share with their families to help them to do meaningful activities at home around literacy. We're also working to have a literacy showcase in the spring that allows teachers to showcase the work that we're doing around writing and reading and academic achievement. Thanks for having me.
The third portion of our school improvement plan is focused on increasing academic achievement in literacy and math, and also with a focus on multilingual learners. The staff at BT Bullock are completing a 2-year professional development based on the science of reading. Teachers are required to identify students as case studies from their current classrooms. As part of our school improvement plan, we are targeting students who are receiving supplemental and intensive interventions to better align our professional development efforts with monitoring student progress. With 83% reading proficiency in BT Bullock kindergarten through second grade classrooms, we are confident that science-based reading instruction will move our targeted students. Professional learning communities will implement the use of data protocols to analyze data on a continuous and frequent basis. Our school's leadership team have outlined clear, high-yield instructional strategies to be used system-wide, with an emphasis on critical thinking and writing. A walkthrough form aligned with instructional focus was created for the leadership team to monitor progress. Staff members would also be provided the opportunity to learn from peers as they conduct learning observations in colleagues' classrooms. In addition, our school-wide data indicates a need for direct and clear vocabulary instruction. We will be using a common grade level list to ensure that all students are receiving consistent instruction on academic vocabulary. In addition, we will be implementing a science and evidence-based intervention for grades 3 through 5 for struggling readers. BT Bullock is committed to a data-driven academic achievement and strategic initiatives around parental involvement and teacher retention. We are committed and confident that our collective efforts will ensure growth for every learner. Thank you for your time.
I just had one comment. I have several comments for the end of all the presentations, but as a parent of a couple elementary school boys and reading through this plan, I just wanted to highlight the short how-to videos idea. So there's a lot of specific actions at all these schools that I think are great, and I don't want to minimize those, but that one to me just seemed very innovative. Like, it's so simple. We go to YouTube for everything, to fix cars, to do everything, but that's not something that exists. And we went to our kids' teachers before asking how we can help them with some of the things noted on report cards and all that. I just thought that was a great, like, that was the winner for me as far as single actions. I just appreciate that one, and I do think that'll move the needle, hopefully with parents, and then as well as, you know, the teachers, as you guys are talking about, sharing best practices to be able to look at short videos to replicate things that are working well, and I just wanted to highlight that one. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I had a question. Your first statement started out by saying barriers that were identified. In your personal opinion, what would be the number one barrier that you think you faced?
That's a great question. To whittle it down, I would say staffing, having the absolute best teacher in front of students. There are sometimes some very unexpected things that happen. Some of it is just life. You know, life happens that you have to leave unexpectedly. Sometimes there are challenges that just, you know, education can be very difficult, and sometimes some of our newer teachers or teachers entering the field in an alternative method are not aware of how complex and difficult the world of education can be. I take pride in the staff at BT Bullock. They're a tough crew, and they're really good at loving on kids and helping them succeed. And I think sometimes you look in from the outside and it just looks easy, and it's hard. And sometimes we lose people and have to get really creative and innovative in how we fill those slots. And sometimes it impacts other programs when you do that, because you have to pull, as they say, rob from Peter to pay Paul sometimes, so.
Well, I commend you, and I can assure you that no one doubts your dedication or any of these schools that's presenting school improvement plans here today. And I know it's rough just to see a number, and that's not what you see and what you feel. And maybe you just need more like hers to win more cars and show that love and affection as well. Okay. Well, does anyone else on the board have any questions for Stephanie? Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are you tonight? Good. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Amy Petrarca, and I'm the principal at WB Wicker. I have with me Mr. Cody Peterson. He is our PE teacher and chair of our SIT team, voted on with a lot of confidence from his fellow teachers at our school. And I'm going to review our plan as well. A lot of similarities in what you've heard already tonight as far as the actual goals. Increasing parent engagement is the first one that you will see for us. And this is an interesting concept. When we started looking as a team at all the opportunities that we have in our school for parents to come to the school, there are lots and lots of them. I feel like I live there sometimes.
You do.
But we focused a lot on the word parent engagement. So what does it take to move those opportunities to visit our school into more meaningful engagement for our parents. So we have a list of things that we have planned for this year as well as years in the past. Many of those have already happened. So I think early and often is what we've talked about a lot, having those opportunities, not waiting and have all the showcases happen in May. Because some parents, you get them in the building with maybe a science fair, which we just had last week. Or you get them in the building with a fifth grade performance, which we just had last week. And then they become more comfortable coming into the building. And I have found, this school has only existed for a few years, but I've done this in other schools. And oftentimes it's that first crucial step of bringing the parents in and getting them to a comfort level to start having those meaningful conversations. Also being very purposeful and clear about the purpose of what we're meeting for, especially if it is those conferences that we have. Nobody wants to be the bad guy, but at the same time, what I have had conversations with my teachers about is often parents tell me they didn't know. But I've got all this evidence of all these meetings you had. How did they not know? Let's not mix messages. Let's not, do that sandwich thing where we put way too much happy on both sides and then nobody remembers what was in the middle. Let's make sure that parents understand what we are sharing with them about their children. Because, when they tell me at the end that they had no idea, it's too late at that point for that year. So we want to make sure we're having those very honest conversations early and often with our parents. Moving on to our second goal. This one is a very important one for us. It is about student achievement. Student achievement is always at the center of what we do. Our goal is to move from 42.7% total school proficiency to 53, which is a big goal. It has even been suggested to me that it might be too big of a goal. But our school improvement team and our teachers don't believe that any school should be below 50%. And even if it's too big of a goal, it's not too big of a goal because we were at 17 just 2 years ago, and we're at 42 now, 43. So we've already made those sort of gains. Now, keeping that momentum is obviously a challenge, and we will accept that challenge. But we've set our goal at 53, and that's, an interesting number, but it is a combination of all three subjects. Specifically looking back at where we've been and where we think we can go. Interesting, when I look at this, we've looked at it a million times, we outpaced the district in every grade and in every category of test for growth, with the exception of science. So we are looking at things that we can do about that. Our teachers are already meeting every week with Mr. Dylan Crockett. He brings a lot of passion about science, if you know him. So they're meeting weekly with him already. We have also shifted as a school. When you are at 17%, you are not an intervention school because your whole school would need an intervention, right? So we worked a lot for a couple years on our core instruction. Remember, I came into the school and there were 25 beginning teachers. I still have 13 beginning teachers, which is a lot when we're talking about the quality that that experience brings to the classroom. However, we did shift this year. We believed we were at a place where we could shift from that core, building that capacity with teachers in that core level to more of an intervention level. So I actually pulled 3 of my own teachers from the classroom that did not ask to leave, which is an important point in my opinion, because I went to teachers who had a proven track record of success with that type student, with those students who were struggling, and I asked them to come on that team. And that is an important distinction, I think. So we have now a team of 3. Early indicators, which are the Read to Achieve test, which just happened a couple weeks ago. We had 7 out of 21 kids. That's 7 kids that had a dozen opportunities to show proficiency last year and failed to do so, which normally means you're not going to do so. 7 kids now in 4th grade that failed to meet those benchmarks all last year passed last week, 7 out of 21. I credit that team of interventionists to making that happen. They're very focused. We have been very focused on data for years, And now we're evolving and shifting that focus, not just on how to look at data, how to analyze data, but now what? What do we do with it? We're using those to feed conversations in our PLCs. We're having those very structured PLC meetings with different topics each week, making sure that we're hitting all of those parts and pieces for our students. The last one is about retaining those effective teachers. Again, a unique situation for me with as many beginning teachers as I have had. And we're, again, focusing on that word effective. So if anyone on the board has any pull at SAS, please spread the word that my colleagues and I would really like our scores soon. We drive instruction with those growth numbers. I just told you that I chose people to come out of their classrooms based on their proven track record of success, and that is a big piece of what I use to determine that, because it's apples to apples. That's the best data we have. So we're still waiting on that data, but we hope to maintain and keep those teachers that we are growing in our school, so that, because we know how much that matters to our kids. To alleviate some of the issues with teacher retention and also with teacher experience level, we have hired several of the Participate teachers, which I know you've heard about Participate. And just because I'm sure you're curious, when you completely uproot and move to a new system, a new place, a new country, everything, how did they do? They did great. That experience did matter for us. I've added 5 more of them to my staff this year. So I have a total of 8 Participate teachers. And we actually have a 4th goal, but we only have it there because it was such an impactful piece early on, and we're so close to what our original goal said. We're still working on it, but it has to do with behavior. And I know behavior is not necessarily the flashy one that everyone wants to talk about, but it does matter in a classroom. So we're also continuing to track that data for the purposes of this plan this year, and we didn't want to give that one up, so we kept it in there, and we'll continue to work on that. Any questions that you have for me?
I had a couple. Okay. So the first thing I wrote down, and I was trying to flip through here and see if I could find from your teacher survey, because I thought one of these plans had mentioned teachers leaving because it's not worth the pay. And I hate talking about pay because there's not a lot of control we have. But one question I wrote down, so knowing the challenges at Wicker, and so you guys have, I think, the largest percentage of economically disadvantaged kids, and if we don't acknowledge that, then we're not doing our job. So the question I had, and maybe this is more for the board, but in some of the finance training we took recently, municipalities can elect to provide financial support to the school system. Should we consider asking the city council to think about stepping up to provide some kind of incentive for teachers? I don't know if that would help move the bar with teacher retention.
HR and I have been talking about this for a little bit now. There's a couple terms that I have found in my search for leading a school that's in a similar situation. There are terms like teacher on special assignment. We had not opened a new school in Lee County in many, many years, and, hindsight is easy to get up here and talk about, what we would do. But I know we're going to be facing that again. So I do have some thoughts about some things that we need to consider when we go down that road again, to be sure that we're pulling in teachers. So teachers on special assignment, for example, are a district like ours would take their best and brightest and put them in a new school, pay them an additional supplement to do that, and then tell them they have 3 years. And if they want to stay at the end, that's fine. And if they want to return to their school, that's fine. But they're teachers on special assignment. Because the first year for Wicker, there were entire grade levels with nothing but first-year teachers. Now, as a teacher, and when I think back to my first year, how much I learned from the teachers who were surrounding me, the veterans that were around me. I mean, many of the things that became my everyday practice came from them. So, we often find ourselves in that position of trying to be the buddy teacher while also being the principal. And I think it's more effective when it's that natural, organic kind of evolution that teachers get to experience in most cases, where they come into a school as the new teacher, but they're on a team of veteran teachers.
Thank you for that. And honestly, as finance chair, I may take that away as an action item to look into a bit more. Ms. Petrarca, the other one I had, so back to your point about discipline and behavior, and I've got some examples from you on that before, the challenges that you guys face. So the question there is, so we have the intervention specialists for curriculum and instruction. Would there be any benefit to having a discussion about an intervention specialist on behavior side? Because I know you guys get some special cases that other places may not see as many of. Is that something that the board could perhaps assist you with? Would that be a benefit?
I think the whole district could benefit from some behavioral support. We've been working on some things. We've made some changes this year as a district. Working on compartmentalizing some things to try to pull our efforts into one place. That's just a process, but I do think that that all schools could probably benefit. We've actually just in the past week sort of shifted our focus in our own. We have this program. It's like in-school suspension, but in elementary school, it's always been considered Behavior Improvement Program, BIP. Y'all have heard of this, but we shifted just that one word to intervention last week, and really are tracking data on some behaviors that are reoccurring, that when I look at our behavioral data, I see, not fights, not big things, not, nobody smoking at Wicker. But I do see a lot of non-compliance. We see a lot of students who walk in our door and they at least appear to have never been asked to follow a direction, or to accept no as an answer, or to share space, or to share attention, or to share any of those things. So, what we do is teach, so that's sort of the position we take. We teach behavior, but, there's not a time set aside for that. There's ELA, there's math, there's science, how we block it all out. So we have to infuse that into everything we do, which is an additional layer. So I think, we'll be looking for ways to do that very effectively, because it seems small, but, that lack of classroom compliance can really look like not just this child not getting what they need, but an entire classroom not getting what they need.
If you have a name at SAS, I don't work in the education department, but
Probably get your name.
I would be in his or
friend.
I would be in his or her office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.
We have school data. The teacher data has to exist. I just don't believe that it doesn't. So
I just wanted to mention for the rest of the board, and I know that you won't say this because it can sound like an excuse, but it isn't, and I can say it, and it won't sound like an excuse. Maybe it will. I'm not sure. But as far as the data, boiling this number down, this all-powerful number that we talk about as a performance score, I think Wicker improved by about 4 points from last year, and I think the reading grade improved by about 7 points from last year. But this magical 85% growth that was at 80% growth last year slipped about 3 points, and that's why you're standing at this podium right now. So even though performance improved at the school, this one little growth, and that's unfortunate. And I mean, it's unfortunate that an entire number, a school gets boiled down to a number in the first place. But I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts. I appreciate it. I recognize it. Staff as well, please pass along my thanks. My daughter attended their elementary school in 2020. I attended elementary school at WB Wicker back in the 80s. I believe you attended elementary school at the Wicker?
my family did. When they tore down Greenwood, I was one of the last ones at Old Greenwood, but my sister and my mother went to Wicker for a little while.
So it's in great hands. It's a great school in great hands, and I appreciate all of you.
It is a great school, and we won't be low performing long.
No, you won't. And also, we appreciate when you came and spoke before the board. The media tends to take little bits and pieces of whatever they choose to do, but if you remember that one paragraph in that statement, which I feel is vital for all of us to remember in this room, is that we already know that schools all across the state are performing better than the performance grades show because the current formula reflects local income more than student academic growth. And if you stuck around and saw the slides that Dr. Dawsonbach put up, you would see that looking at our status, where we at in this county, as much as we may not want to admit it, for us to, if we have a B, it's really an A. If we have a D, and that's just the way that we look at the great big picture. But I appreciate him volunteering to take care of the SAS issue. We'll follow up with him on tomorrow.
Thank you.
He's
I do
sassy
too.
anyway, ma'am, so we'll just go from there.
Well, I do appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that, not just for myself, but for my colleagues in the room, because it's not easy to be in this position for any of us, and it does mean a lot.
Okay,
that
thank
all
you
see
so
it
much.
that way.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I guess I'd just really like to highlight, I hope that somewhere out there, parents are watching this tonight and seeing just the commitment level of these teachers and these principals and what they're trying to do. And if you as a parent are sitting out there watching this meeting, get in and get involved. Behavior starts at home. Reading continues at home. These teachers are great, but they cannot get your kid up and get them to school on time, and they can't always make them behave once they get there. That's your job as a parent. And just for what it's worth, I think this is a community school system, and it takes the village, and we're all in it together. We're going to rise or we're going to fall together. And I don't know.
Let's move on,
That's
please.
that.
And first of all, we had a very strong commitment the day that you got your award. You need to know that this board here, whom I appreciate dearly, worked 14 hours that day. It was a straight day, but we are very proud of you.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Well, my name is Robert Newby. I am the principal at EC Middle School. I have Ms. Kashika DeWitt, who is my AP as well. I'm moving into my second year at EC Middle School, and the first thing that I would like to say that we're doing this year that we did yesterday is every decision that we make at EC Middle School is intentional. It's what is important for the students at EC Middle School. We love our staff, but in the end, we're trying to make sure our students get where they need to be in the very end. And so every decision that we make is intentional. And the first thing that we are trying to do is increase our student proficiency by 15% to at least meet or exceed growth so that we come out of this low performance status this school year. Last year, ELA was 37.5%. This year, we wanted to be 43.1. Math was 41.6. We would like it to be 47.8. Science was 57. We would like it to be 65.5. We've already done our first check-ins, and it looks like we're heading that way in our English department anyway. Sixth grade ELA was 49.3, seventh grade was 48.9, and eighth grade was 44.1. So we're heading that way for our English department. Our math department, on the other hand, our sixth grade was 38, seventh grade was 32.5. Eighth grade was 29.8, and our science was 47.1. So looking at the data from last year for the stuff that the kids were tested on this year for science, they increased it because it was 44.1 last year. We still have some work to do for math, but I think we have one of the best academic coaches in Lee County who has proven with her track record about math and data, and that's what our POCs are very intentional. It's all data-based. They go in and they unpack those standards so that the teachers understand exactly what the standard is asking them to teach. A lot of times teachers want to teach what they want to teach, but don't want to teach what the standard is asking them to teach. So we want to make sure that they unpack those standards and teach exactly what the standard is teaching. And that's all we did last year. We took those standards, we unpacked them. This is what the standards is asking the students to know, and the teachers correlated that to the students, and that's what they did on the integrate test. The way we do this is we're looking at EOG scores, EVAS data, check-ins, our professional development logs, instructional planning days, as we finished one up last week from our first data, and the teachers had the opportunity to look at every single student in the classroom. They had conversation with those kids who are not performing where they should be performing and try to encourage them to make sure that we're going to be looking at them for this next check-in data. So our PLC room is getting ready to be transformed. So we'll be putting up data for every student at EC Middle School. So whatever EVOS has them projected as, we put them there, and as they grow and we see them move, we move their card for whatever subject that they're in at a particular time. And so as long as we continue to look at that data, continue to move the kids, then we'll get to where EC Middle School needs to be that school to where I want us to be and where our staff wants us to be. And the way we look at that, the information we look at now is iReady. Teachers are expected to spend at least 45 minutes a week doing iReady. They already did their beginning of the year assessment. They're looking at that data and dissecting, and they're putting students where they need to be to fill those gaps or those holes that they have already in the classroom. We look at our data for our check-ins. ELA and math teachers are participating in iReady PD. They have common assessments that they look at. It's not like we're doing apples and oranges. If we're doing the same data, the same test, we can see exactly what standards those students need to be working on that they are not so well in. And so once they do all of that stuff, then we have decided as a school that when we start, after the check-in data, our math is what's kind of failing right now, but we have already discussed that they will at least do one week of pull a small group for those kids who are struggling. So the MTSS model has it that everybody gets that co-instruction. So they now know which students are struggling and what specific standards. And every week when we review lesson plans, we're expected to see where they're pulling those kids at least once a week to try to get them to move to where they need to be for that next level. The next place we want to look at is going to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers. As we know, it's hard to get teachers to in the classroom. As has already been said, they think that teaching is easy, but once they get into the classroom, they realize it is hard work. And I tell teachers it's not a 7 to 3 job. Sometimes you're up late at night, early in the morning time, getting those lesson plans together, grading papers. At no given point in time should you not know where your students stand in your classroom. And I try to relay this message to my staff as well. Even when I was teaching, my APs were there, they knew at every given point where the students were. And as teachers, we're expected to do that. No, we don't get the glory. No, we don't get accolades we deserve, but we're doing it for the kids. And if we're truly there for the kids, we do whatever it takes to get the kids where they need to be. My goal was to move and change the culture of Eastleigh Middle School. I think I've done that in the last year or so because I want Eastleigh Middle School to be a place where everybody feels welcome when they walk in the door. I don't want my parents, I don't want my students, I don't want anybody from the community to walk inside that school and not feel like they're welcome to go to any classroom and see what's going on in our classroom, because there are good things going on at Eastleigh Middle School. I invite anybody in the community to come to see what we're doing at Eastleigh Middle School, because the staff and the students are working very, very hard, and they're going to work even harder so that we pull ourselves out of this low status this school year as well. And the last thing we're going to do is increase our parental involvement. We do that by parent night. We had our first report card pickup for the first quarter. That was a big turnout. We also, my dean of student and I had a meet the principal and meet the dean of students today. Unfortunately, we didn't have as many people as we would like to come out, but we know that we would try that again in the springtime as well. So parental involvement, as you've already said, is the important key. If we get our parents to get involved in their students' education, then you know the sky's the limit for those kids. So anytime that parents want to feel free to come out to Eastleigh Middle School, we want you to come out and see what we're doing there at Eastleigh Middle School, and we want you to look at the great things that's happening at Eastleigh Middle School. And that's it.
You're not going to let her speak, sir?
She didn't want to speak.
She said
She's going to do it all.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Madam Chair, if I
Any
may, I didn't have a question. I just kind of had something I wanted to point out that I read in your data analysis, Mr. Newby, and that's the higher expectations for student learning are necessary. And that's speaking my language, because I think I read articles from across the country where standards get lowered to try to make it look like student achievement is increasing, but that's not what's happening. So that statement to me is very important, and it honestly reminded me of one that I missed from Wicker. In their plan, it mentioned that there is an old practice of no grade below a 50%, but that indicates that students are 50% mastery of the topic. So they took that and said, students can now receive a 0 again if there's no mastery there. And I think that is setting that high expectation. And I appreciate both of those things. So-
And I think what I failed to mention, at East Lee, we also implemented, a student may get a grade, but we're not accepting anything less than a 70. And so if that student is not making a 70, then it's important that they make phone calls to the parents because the child can do it. We're more interested in the kids learning the concept instead of a grade. And so I figure if you do it 5 times, eventually you're gonna learn that concept we need you to learn at the end of the year. So no student's allowed to get less than a 70. So if your child has less than a 70, you need to give me a phone call.
Now, Mr. Newby, there is a rumor, I would just like to confirm, you to confirm or deny. Is it true that even though you're the principal, you actually step in and teach classes when needed?
That room is true, yes,
Have you
ma'am.
been seen driving a school bus, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I have
sir.
been seen driving school.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes,
Taking
ma'am.
out trash, whatever.
And you think we don't know these things?
Good evening. My name is Jamie Cox. I'm the principal at Wesley Middle School, and with me tonight I have Miss Stacy Mann. She's one of our wonderful 8th grade science teachers. She is our 8th grade level chair, and she is our chairperson on our school improvement team. So our goals are also aligned with our district goals, and our first one is to increase our academic proficiency and growth for our students. Our second goal relates to retaining and recruiting highly qualified teachers and building a sense of empowerment and leadership among our teachers. And then our third one relates to our family and community involvement, because we want all of our stakeholders, just like Mr. Newby said, we want all of our stakeholders to feel invested and proud to be a part of Wesley, and we want everyone to feel welcome there. And I, too, would welcome anyone to come in and see the wonderful things that are going on. We have fantastic students, we have fantastic teachers, and our low-performing status doesn't reflect what truly goes on inside of our school building. So we have this plan that we've put together, and this is not just words on a paper to us. We are very intentional with what we want to do. We do not like to be considered and labeled low performing. We are winners, and so we are going to come out of this low performing status, and it takes some hard work, but we have the right people in place in our schools to make this happen. So I'm very confident in our staff and our students and the hard work that's being put into this plan already. So our school is going to provide academic support to students through a multi-tiered system. And we have a goal of increasing our academic proficiency and our growth by a realistic number of at least 3% for next year. Our numbers for last year with our reading and our math proficiency were in the 30 percentile range. And so we want to boost that by at least 3% this coming year. In addition, we have a science target of 65% proficiency. A couple of subgroups that we are focusing on is our ML population, our multilanguage learners, and our students with disabilities. Those subgroups are not meeting their proficiency and their growth like they should, and so they are a couple of targeted groups for us. We have very intentional professional learning community times. We have a wonderful academic coach, Ms. Squires, who helps to facilitate these meetings, and so our teachers can plan, and our plans are aligned with our standards, and we have a focus on rigorous instruction. And so when we look at how we're planning for our students, we are looking at each individual student, we're looking at data, and we're making decisions based on that to help and support each of our groups of students. We want to support our lower learners, our middle learners, our high learners. We want to support all of our learners. We want to push them all to grow. And so in writing our rigorous lesson plans and making sure that we are in classrooms and observing and providing continuous feedback, that's one way that we're going to make that happen. We also are looking at common assessment data. We have weekly common assessments that in our different academic areas that we look at, but then we also have our benchmarks, our iReady benchmarks, our check-in data, and we have even dedicated instructional planning days where our ELA, math, and 8th grade science teachers spend a day looking at and analyzing data and identifying areas where we can make improvements. And that most recently happened last week when they analyzed some iReady and check-in data. We also are getting ready to start up our after-school tutoring because we've also taken the data and really identified some areas where students may be at risk. And so we are going to start our after-school tutoring program in the areas of math, reading, and 8th grade science. And this is going to be an earlier start than we've ever had before. Something else we are doing that's sort of innovative for us, and I've had a chance to speak with Mr. Rummel about this, is we are partnering with EdDirection using some of our Title I funds so that we can get some very intensive professional development. As you can see from our data, about a third of our teachers are beginning teachers, but all of our teachers can use support in classroom management strategies. And so when we have our classes that are well managed, then students can learn in that environment. And so we want to make sure we're holding those high expectations for all of our learners. But in addition to that professional development with EdDirection, we also have professional development that we're participating in regards to vocabulary strategies, rigorous classroom practices, looking at depth of knowledge, looking at grading policies for our students, literacy. Those are just a few of the things that we're focusing on for our professional development. We've also implemented more positive incentives for students, and though we still hold our students to a high expectation for their behaviors, we are looking, instead of a more punitive aspect, a more positive aspect. And some of the things that we're doing are implementing our Pride Store, where students can earn tickets. As a matter of fact, I have some tickets around my neck that we will pass out when we see students showing the Wesley way and those positive behaviors. We want to highlight students who are performing well in their classrooms and recognize them with some incentives. And we also have implemented a Friday Fun Club. And so the purpose behind that is to encourage the students to be engaged in positive behavior so that if they're not receiving referrals, then they can participate in this fun club. And so we're looking at the whole child and trying to support the whole learner.
So our second goal involves recruiting and retaining highly qualified teachers by cultivating a positive culture, by empowering teachers to succeed, providing teachers with ongoing support, and creating better working conditions. We do this by sending out regular teacher surveys to get a pulse on how our teachers are feeling, if they're feeling supported, and things that we can do to better support them. We are bringing in EdDirection to help teachers come up with strategies to build those relationships with students in order to have better classroom management, to hopefully decrease the number of referrals so that we can keep students in class and keep them in the learning environment. We've also regularly analyzed school data and look at our educator handbook data just to see where we're standing with that. As a teacher, I can attest to the fact that we've used Title I funds to provide resources. As a science teacher, that's very important. Also, for the Friday clubs that we're allowing the students to participate in. And I also have been fortunate enough to participate in the WIDA conference this year that was held at WB Wicker, as well as last June being able to participate in the AVID conference in Tampa. So lots of professional development opportunities for the teachers there.
And then our third goal that we wanted to speak about is increasing our staff, family, and community engagement. And the purpose of that is to increase positive behaviors with our school and therefore, in turn, student performance. Our staff, again, has been provided with lots of professional development opportunities. We have lots more to come so that we can understand better the culture of our students, the context that they're coming from, and because relationships are key. That is the number one thing, is building relationships with our students and families, and that's how we can get that performance on that numbers end that we want to see, but it's really all about relationships. And we have also already been utilizing some student and parent surveys. Our leadership team just yesterday took the feedback from our parent, teacher, and student surveys, analyzed that data, and have come up with action steps, in addition to even what we have here, where we're going to be implementing some things to make sure our parents have we communicate with our parents a lot, but making sure they understand the academic side and how they can support the students at home. So we want to help to educate our families in that too. We want to increase that collaboration, and we believe that that is how our students are going to show growth and success. And just thank you for listening and reading our plans. And we do believe West is best because we believe everyone succeeds together. And so we thank you for your support.
Does anybody on the board have any questions?
Madam Chair, I had another, not necessarily question, but maybe statement. Going through these, so I don't know, I looked for board actions to take away from these because I see a lot of good steps, obviously, we're taking at the school level. And I appreciated, honestly, the discipline data that you had included in your plan. I think that gives us some things to look at. We've talked about discipline committee potentially as something that the board would look into to help commonize and standardize some of the discipline things across schools. And I think this kind of gives us some incentive to really consider that. And then also, even just seeing the specific cell phone use information here, I think that lends itself to the technology policy that we're looking at. And so, like I said, I mean, if there's additional things that at the board level that can be done to support what you have in this plan to help you make those things happen, we're all ears.
It's a unique position. Being the chair of the board, you surround yourself with all these smart people, and they have these little sayings that they say, and they stick in your head. For instance, Patrick will always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, okay? Then you're going to have Eric beside of me who always says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I'm probably going to have the hardest question tonight. How long have you been a low-performing school, and what barriers or things that did you find during the process of working with Vicki and Cindy, which I know they did an outstanding job, but is there any barriers that were identified that are new that you didn't identify last year or the year before? And I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. I just have to ask that question.
So we have been in this low-performing status for 3 years, and we do not like being in that position. We did conduct a needs assessment, so we looked at a lot of different data. One thing that we noted was attendance, and not only attendance of students, but teacher attendance as well. There was a correlation when we were looking at our discipline data that students were missing a lot of time in class. And so that is something that we are striving to change because we want to make sure that if our students are not in class, they can't receive the instruction. If our teachers are not in class, the students cannot receive the instruction. And so that's already something that has improved this year, and we hope we'll see the end result of that. But our expectations, as I've said, are still high, but we have been more creative in how we can support our teachers, but also support the students in being able to access the instruction.
Thank you.
Speaking of attendance, my daughter Carson will be at school tomorrow. She's getting a great education at West. And so I don't know of a better vote of confidence than I can give you. So it's kind of a fine line being a board member and a parent. Like I want to be in the school, but I don't want to be hovering. So if I can help, please let me know, and I'll be glad to do it. And for all 5 of the principals here, the administrators, there's some really strong administrators in here. And I can just say personally, you guys have all of my full confidence. So thank you all.
Thank you for your support.
Madam Chair, I'd like to say as well for all of these schools that I'm speaking for me. I think all the board feels this way as well. We're not here to criticize or judge you. I think all of us truly want to do what we can to support you because you're on the field, you're out there. And so the question
that I like to ask. It's 4 words, both questions. What do you need? How can we help? And I'm sincere about that, and I think this board is as well. We're here to support you, not to criticize or to make you feel worse than you already do, but we're here to support you. Let us know how we can do that.
I think he's extremely sincere, just so you guys understand. When I ask that question, I'm not trying to be the bad person on America's Got Talent. It's a very direct question. What is it that you need, and what information did you possibly gather? Because I'm going to tell you personally, and I know if Chris doesn't mind, I think you might want to explain to the board exactly what Vicki and Cindy has done. I was in the central office, and I got to see them in action, and it was, wow. It was just phenomenal, and just the information that they put out and how it was done. We just want to make sure that you have exactly what you need to be able to help you in the future to meet those goals. Okay? Thank you so much. Chris, would you mind explaining to the board a little bit about these 2 rock stars you have in here that just come up here and done everything? And
Sure, and, I want to make sure the principals, their staffs, and Cindy and Vicki get the credit, not me. They did all the hard work. But Vicki Hayslip has been a long-time principal and sort of administrative legend in the district, and Cindy McCormick is a longtime administrator, retired from Cumberland County. Both of them are known as, turnaround principals. They can go into schools and do what it takes in a very short amount of time to get things going in the right direction. And so one of the first things they came in and did, that we talked about and I really wanted done was a deep dive needs assessment. Because unless you do that and you know where you're going or why you got to where you are, you really don't know where to improve. They did a lot with root causes. Why are we performing the way we are? And you've got to really dig deep into that. So they did a lot of hard work. I know that there were many days that our principals were very aggravated with them and probably very aggravated with me. But I do think that this will be a positive return on investment. I hope tonight you've seen the passion and the purpose and the hard work that went into this. I do believe that I know that it will pay off. I want to make sure our principals know that this does not define you. It does not define your teachers, your staff, and it certainly does not define your students. We're going to use it to inspire us to work harder and do better. But I certainly appreciate all the hard work that went in tonight. And I appreciate the board taking the time to read it. And I appreciate the board being supportive and not attacking. Because it is not easy as a principal to stand in front of the board. It's not easy to have this status hanging over your head. No principal drives into the building every morning thinking about how they can screw things up. Everybody goes to work every day wanting to do what's best for kids. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but I think we've got the right people in the right places, and they won't be back next year. Just want to remind you, this requires no action tonight. We will seek feedback from the public starting tomorrow. Any changes that are needed will be made, and they will be, the final product will be given to you on December 4th. You will vote on those at that time, and then we will submit to the state.
I think we should give the principals as well as Vicki and Cindy another hand, please. Thank you. And not just clapping hand, but additional hands. The two do-outs that the board has committed to is we will have Mr. Rummel, who is doing some research for us in reference to city allegations as well, and Jamie is going to be attacking SAS.
Be there in the morning. I did, if I can, Madam Chair, answer Member Davidson's question of what can we do. The thing I wrote down was recruit and retain teachers. I think everybody mentioned that. I think in the school improvement plans for the performing schools, I'll mention that as well. So we're going into budget season. I think that needs to be the challenge for the board.
Madam Chair, I had a couple comments also, if I may, before we move on
Yeah,
to
let's
the
go
next
ahead.
one.
Let's go to the table.
So I had these kind of blanket comments after reading through all these, so I didn't want to take a bunch of time individually, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate the level of detail that was put into these plans. A lot of the questions that I came up with reading the overviews were answered with the data and the personal analysis that was done and included in here. And I think that the alignment of the goals that was present here, so student achievement, staff retention, and parental involvement, I think that that standardized approach where we're all going after the same goals is going to pay dividends here. And something else that I really appreciated reading through some of the specific actions were opportunities that you guys found to standardize things. I don't have all the specific examples wrote down, but I saw templates and surveys and things that are being standardized. And when we're dealing with people, that's not always easy to do. So I work in industry, we build tractors, so we can standardize everything, but it's different. And I just appreciate you guys finding opportunities to do that, because when things are standard, it's easy to measure against yourself and find improvements and ways to get better. So I appreciate that. And then something else I noticed, again, kind of speaking to board action, a lot of these things with parental involvement mentioned like websites and things like that. And I think that Mr. Alverson had found the updated website that'll be coming, the web service that includes an app. I'm hopeful that there are tools that will be in there that can help the principals meet the goals that you guys have laid out here in again, a standard way, a way that everybody across the county will be able to do the same thing, find the information at your individual school. So, and then with that, again, echoing the other board members' comments, if there's other opportunities like that to do, district-wide things that the board can support, please don't hesitate to bring those to us.
Okay, anybody else have any more comments?
Dovetail off of that, Mr. Davidson and I have the pleasure to serve on the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. So in our last meeting, we had the non-low-performing schools present their plans, and they, of course, were very aligned, much like these. But some of the things that they are doing that I think every parent, every student, every school cannibalize each other's websites, because there are some things happening at Sandley Middle School where they're doing data collection and building Google sites where you can go in and find materials to assist your child at home. And I guess I'm dumb, but I'd never thought about going to the other middle school's website and search their math teacher's pages to get help for my middle schooler. And so if it was mind-blowing to me to do that, I mean, I'm just sharing that out. I firmly believe that these principals and these teachers are doing everything they know how to do to improve these students. And we as a community, we as the parents, we as the neighbors have got to come in and do our part of the lift. We cannot put everything in their laps and expect them to train up our children in the way they should go. That's our jobs. That's our commandment. That's our mission. And I think that we have so much we can take individually as this board, as members, but also just, I mean, I'm speaking to the parents and the grandparents and the community out there that says, do the best you know until you learn better. And then once you know better, do better. I mean, one of my greatest favorite quotes from Maya Angelou says, we do the best we know how until we learn better. And these documents, to me, show that we dug down and we know better now where we have to attack. And I'm so proud of the work that's been put in, and I'm itching to somehow get my hands in and get dirty and get this thing done, And so I could get choked up talking about these kids want to learn. We want to teach. We've just got to get those pieces together and firing. And I just think we're in the right place to do that. The youth, the energy, the enthusiasm is, I could get choked up talking about it, but cheerleader over here. I'll shut up.
All right.
Madam Chair, I had one more, and this one is focused at the board. Because the school's job is to teach those students that show up at their schools. Something that I saw, and this is in all the schools, but Wicker's percentage, man, that one struck me. So ESL student population at Wicker is 34%. So 1 in 3 kids is learning how to speak, read, or write English. That's a big number. And I think as elected officials, we have to acknowledge that hurdle. I mean, it's our constitutional duty as a school system to teach those kids that show up. So we're going to do that. I'm not suggesting anything otherwise. But what I am suggesting is I think we need to work towards some kind of board resolution to make sure that our local, state, and maybe even federal government officials are aware of that hurdle.
City.
Because I know we get funding for ESL students to teach them, and that's great, but that doesn't change the fact that we're being graded on student proficiency and growth. And, Wicker has 1 in 3 students that are learning how to speak English, and these tests are only offered in English. They can be read to the students in English, and they can have a dictionary, their language to English to help. But they're not offered in other languages. So I just think I'm happy to bring something at a future meeting and work with you guys on that, but I don't think we need to let that go without some kind of acknowledgement or whatever.
Highlight it, yep.
Yeah.
Well, since, can't shut me down, I'm just joking. Since both yourself and Ladati are not on the chopping block, but you have do-outs as well, it would be appropriate if you could actually give us feedback or what progress you've got on those 2 items sometime this week. If you can just give it to us in an email, or if you need help, I'll be your backup for the SAS part, and that'll keep us going. Okay, are we ready to move forward?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask, Mr. Gass, you got anything you want to say?
I just wanted to say what everybody has talked about up here tonight. Teacher retention, parental involvement, and better work conditions. And that rings every time. And I just wanted to reiterate that fact that I believe that as a board, as a whole, that is on our radar to try to, clean up the ship and get it where it needs to go. I mean, there was a lot of common things mentioned, but those really, they were all, every teacher that goes, teacher or principal that got up here and spoke, that was it, and that was it in the survey as well. And so those, just like Ladati said, in different ones, we've got the plan, and now we just need to put it in action. That was it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I'm not going to repeat everything everybody up here said because I wrote it all down, data, recruit, blah, blah, blah. That's all our jobs as well. But there's one thing that we as a board can do that we didn't talk about tonight, and it'll be coming up soon, is when our calendars are presented to us very soon for the upcoming years, that we stick to our guns and stay with what we have voted on to move forward with, because some change will occur because of that tough vote we had and swallowed. So we should stick to our guns. And again, that's shouldn't be in the school improvement plans, but if we want to know what we can do, we need to stick to that plan moving forward and keep the calendar where we've moved it to and keep our eyes on the prize.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We have no intention of going backwards, if we can help it. All right, the next thing that we have is, that's on our agenda, is the policy, the board policies for second reading. Mr. Gaster?
So the policies that come up for second reading, I'm going to read through them, was the annual independent audit, the depositories, community use of the facilities, parental involvement, parental inspection and objection to instructional materials, comprehensive health education program, criminal behavior, surveys of students, student health services, and staff responsibilities and ethics. And that's what is up for second reading, and I would like to make a motion that the Lee County Board of Education approve the second reading of these policies, 8310, 8320, 5030, 1310/4002, 3210, 3540, 4335, 4720, 4520/6120, and 7300.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And next, as most of the board members have actually received multiple phone calls in reference to the stadium being shut down. So the next item on our agenda is Dr. Dawson-Bach explaining the plan ahead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So where we are at this moment, before we can sort of move ahead and get specific recommendations on exactly what needs to be done, because the facility is so old, we don't have, although some of the plans were actually located today, but we don't think it's nearly what is needed. Somebody's going to have to actually go back and redesign the facility in sort of a blueprint form for us to be able to then design what the fix is going to be. For us to do that, we're going to have to hire an architect to make that happen. They are literally going to likely have to come in and x-ray the concrete to see what kind of steel was used inside, and then backwards make the plans so that they can then talk about what options we have. It's hard to know what options we have without knowing what exactly is within the structure. And so part of the request tonight, and if you get too specific on these policies, I'm going to call on the board attorney to come up and help me out. But we have a couple policies, one of which they have additional requirements than what are in the legal requirements. And so the ability to waive those would allow us to move a little quicker on being able to get an architect in that could start that process. We can choose to wait and go through committee and go through other processes and bring it back to the board in December or January, but that slows things down. Our biggest fear at this point is being able to, regardless of what we have to do, we need to try our best to get it done so that we can have graduation in that stadium in May. We, of course, want people to be safe, but we need to move as quickly and as safely as we possibly can. And so the policy that we are requesting the board waive tonight is 9110. There are pieces of that policy that are a little more stringent than what the legal requirements are. So that would allow us to move forward and pick an architect. Also, policy 6420-8720, which are contracts with the board, limits my authority to $50,000. We are asking for only that purchase, which is to go into a contract with an architect, be waived to allow me to go into an agreement up to $100,000. And again, that would be the only purchase that we are asking you to waive. So that is sort of where we are at this point. We're in talks with an engineer. We've talked to folks at DPI. We've talked to some folks at Tharrington Smith on what all we need to do as far as bidding requirements. But that is where we are at this point, is we really need some drawings and some work done to tell us what's inside the structure before we can determine exactly what the fix is going to be.
Why are we going to architecture? My understanding was we had a structural engineer come out and look at it. I don't see where going backward to design, structural engineer should be able to do all that you're talking about.
Well, and he is the one doing the work, so that's who we would be hiring, is that structural engineer to do that backwards drawing and that backwards work. But he has stated that without that and knowing what's within the structure, really can't move forward with recommendations. What is likely to be recommended is a combination of concrete and steel. But again, there's some work that needs to be done because the facility is so old. The original plans are nowhere to be found because the facility is about 55 years old.
The structural engineer that you have spoken to is the architect that you intend to work with? I'm not understanding why architecture. Structural engineer should be able to diagnose and design a fix.
So part is that there's a RFQ process, right? An RFQ process even for the architect, engineer, and if you read the title of the policy, it's specifically it's architects, engineers, surveyors, right? Covers all of these. We're looking for one person who can do these things. We're referring to that as an architect, but that's not the issue. The issue.
That's what I wanted to clarify, is that we're not hiring two people. We're not hiring architecture to tell the structural engineer what the structural engineer should be able to figure out on his own.
past this board meeting.
Understood.
And then we have to wait a month to hire an architect, and we have to wait for board approval. So the idea here is policy, you give Dr. Dawson back the authority to finish that.
I went and looked at and here it is, the RFQ, and it does give some detailed information about what's going on. So that might be helpful.
You read that?
To read that, yeah. So.
And this is specifically just for, and I don't mean to point them out, but Ms. Cox, as you recall how it seems I'm pinpointing on things, this is something that I personally feel like this board has failed out. This, as far as this community is concerned. The stadium that is there has been there over 50-some years. Do you know the lifespan of a stadium is 30? So what this board has took initiative as well, we had to find out, go back and find out what we can actually do better. The moment we have our new superintendent, we will have those long-term and short-term plans where we can track, hey, this parking lot's getting ready to go out in a year, or this stadium's getting ready to go out. So we can admit, just as well as the new, and it should be encouragement for the superintendents out there, that we're all admitting that we're all trying to do the best that we can for the community. But that is a shortfall. So we get these phone calls. We get parents calling, crying, I want my kid to graduate from that school, blah, blah, blah. And this ended up being, I don't mean blah, blah, blah in a bad way, I just mean they're very concerned. It means a lot to them. Our stadiums are a community event. It's not just a place to sit during a ball game. We use it for graduations, for band presentations, and things like that. This scenario that Dr. Dawsonbach has presented to the board, he's actually attempted to keep us all posted as much as possible. But this will allow him, the only thing that we're doing is allowing him, instead of the 50,000 limit, to go to 100,000 for the architect, engineer, whatever you want to call. Would that funding be coming from the lottery funds, or will we pay for it first? Because I know it's eligible for the lottery funds, to be used for the lottery funds. Are we on a time restraint that we cannot ask the county commissioners to approve the lottery funds for use?
No, we can always go back and ask for that. We will probably initially pay for that out of capital outlay, and then we can always go back if we need to. But with the process, it's going to be quicker for us to do it that route.
Okay. Patrick?
In the future, will we need to visit this again to expedite the process of getting a contractor to come actually fix it? I mean, we're just talking about looking at the problem. Do we need to go ahead and, or think about in a couple of months, do we need to revisit this again to speed up getting a contractor to come fix it?
It's certainly possible. I think this person will be able to give us a better idea of what the fix is going to look like. So it is possible that we could have to do a couple things, within reason to move the process along.
Okay. Is it possible that you could tag that on to our meeting in December when we go over the the school improvement plans again? So I don't have to call another special called meeting?
If we have the information we need, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say, I guess as a member in the engineering community, I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm familiar with this process, and I think this specific application is very specialized. I think everybody realizes that with the stadium. The engineer that we've been working with has that expertise, and for that reason, along with the idea that we would really like to have this done for graduation, the time constraint, I'll go ahead and make the motion that the Lee County Board of Education waive policies 9110 and 6420-8720 to expedite the architect selection and give the superintendent the authority up to $100,000 for this contract only.
Second.
Madam Chair, I'd like to say something before we go forward.
I'll second the motion, so we can comment.
You got a second? Okay, go ahead, now you can. No, any comments?
So, Mr. Dawsonbach, I understand the urgency, wanting to try to get this done before graduation in May, which is a may or may not happen, depending on the severity of what they find. So I understand that. The issue that I have, that I've been trying to deal with since this come out of waiving this policy, is that being the policy chair and the policies that are written that our district follows are put in place for checks and balances and for purposes. And I understand that there is unique circumstances throughout the district's faculty that things can happen. I understand that completely. And just like that I had mentioned to other board members this evening, is that we have had quite a few special meetings this year. And that wouldn't change if it was to stay the same. You know, by you requesting the waiver from the 50,000 that you thinking it would take up to 100,000 to get this process here started. But at the same token, is it, the second part of that I see is that, yes, it is a specialized service when you're looking into that particular type of construction. But is it, at the second point of that, is it looking at something where another engineer or firm could see favoritism by the waiver? Because you've already established a relationship with a certain company to perform a first look, right? And what I'm reading in 9110, that you still had to provide all these things back to the board before the board makes a decision on who to go with. And that was my concern, is that do we take and waive to get the process started? Or do we keep the policy like it stands? And you provide the information, because the information that I received through correspondence was October 17th, and that's when you found out about it. And that was it. I haven't had any more correspondence on what firm, you know, until you spoke tonight. And so that's what kind of concerned me, was that once I seen the recommendation to waive the policies, and I'm thinking in my mind, okay, that's great that you have a firm, but on the back side of that, according to the policy, that if it's over $50,000, then it has to come before the board with basically you submitted like in the RFQ, and then it comes before the board, and then the board decides what firm to move forward ahead with. And so what I'm gathering is you want to waive all of that just so you can go ahead and get the process started. And then when you do find a construction company that can repair, then that's when it will be placed out for bid for us to vote on that process. Am I getting all of that right, or?
So I do want to make sure that you understand that RFQ was put, so we did have to bring down an engineer to look at it immediately.
Right.
And so obviously we were in conversation with that person. An RFQ puts that process and that ability to service this project out to anyone. The need to waive this is before we get that back, would be after this board meeting. So the choice would be to have another called board meeting, which you all can certainly do, or we can waive the policy and just allow me to move forward. Now, anything we move forward with is going to be shared with the Finance and Facilities and Technology Committee, and I've tried my best to keep Mr. Rummel and Mr. Ladati apprised of everything that's going on since they're both on F&T. So, yes, we did have conversations with an engineer, but that process has been open to anybody that was interested in looking and providing their own qualifications to service this need. But that is certainly at the will of the board. We can have another called meeting, or you can choose to waive the policy and allow me to have that authority.
Is it possible to hear from our facilities chair?
So is it
If
a
you could give us
competitive,
a
I'm still at a loss here. Is it a competitive bid or not? That's what I'm not certain of.
I'd like our facilities chair, if you could kind of give us a breakdown from beginning
Well,
of this happened.
I can't really say anything to the bids. I don't know, Stephen, do you want to, are you coming up to the podium and speak to that?
I think that, yes, exactly that. So Dr. Dawson-Mack, I think, was trying to get at this point in response to Mr. Gaster's question to clarify that. This is not a waiver so that this pre-identified engineer who looked at things automatically gets the job. right? That is somebody that was consulted, I believe, pro bono, in order to figure out what is an RFQ, what do we even need, what are we even looking at, right? And then the RFQ process is consistent with the policy. The only piece that would be waived here is that it has to come back for another board vote. What Dr. Dawsonback is asking is that you allow him to finish out the RFQ process, so where any applicant comes in, they present their qualifications for this type of work, and the staff then has the authority, if this board waives that policy, to choose the best person from that list.
So long as their contracted amount does not exceed the authority that we may or may not extend tonight.
The reason that we did that is that the rough number that the pro bono engineer had said, if you get somebody to do this, it may be under 50, but if they've got to redo the drawings, it's going to be over 50, not over 100.
But it's still a competitive process.
It's a
Multiple bidders can come where, okay, that's what I was losing.
RFQ process, so it is a qualifications process, and then there's a negotiation with the selected firm. It's a little bit different than a straight construction bid, but yes,
Understood.
it is an open process, and then that person will be valued. So you're not being asked to say to Dr. Dawsonback, hire that person.
Well, that's why I asked earlier about what was the status, because the last communication I had was, we got cracks, stadium is shut down. And that, I mean, I hadn't heard anything since then, so the fact that we're talking about putting out some kind of RFQ that I've not had any information on was problematic for me to vote this evening. I'm with Mr. Gaster. The first I've heard of waiving policy is tonight, and we sit on the policy committee, so.
The RFQ has already gone out, and the RFQ period will be over, I think, tomorrow. Is that right? And that is why, you know, there isn't a full set yet to present to the board, and we need to do a special meeting.
Monday, 2 p.m.
Monday, 2 p.m.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
November 6th, yeah.
No, oh, it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
So, so I'll stop there. I don't want to turn back over to the facilities chair.
I was just going to say that I believe the reason that was relayed to me that we would go over the 50,000 is if we had to sort of reverse engineer the diagrams for the stadium and then figure out the solution. And I think that boils down to, you know, how much steel is in the columns, or, you know, what weight of concrete is used, and that type of thing. That may indicate we can use a smaller piece of steel, or we can use a different solution, you know, with epoxy, but we don't really know what that solution would be until we get this information. And to Dr. Dawsonbach's point, he could go ahead and approve it, particularly if there's one bid. I don't think it would show favoritism because it was an open bid, and but I do understand what you're saying about waiving policy. I mean, I don't have warm fuzzies about waiving policy and expect to do it in a non-emergency situation, but I think when time is of the essence, and you're trying to find a solution to get 6,000 people in a stadium, and be confident with it in May, which is 6 months away, it's a really tight timeline, really, really tight.
Yeah, I understand that fully, and and with what's going on, there's no guarantee that you'll have it in May. So as a forethought, because we don't know, I'm sure that there's alternatives already being thought about, just in case. One of them being the community college is one, or different areas. But you're exactly right. It does not give me warm fuzzies to waive policy, because that's the whole reason why policies are put in place, is to follow. You have guidelines and rules. And I did mention this to some of the board members as well. Whether this thing gets voted yes or no tonight, as board chair, for future things as this could happen again, I think that as the board chair and the board committee, that we need to go back and look at these policies, that when these things do occur, that there is language in place already that kind of remedies this situation. I really believe that. But I wanted to ask the questions because, just like Mrs. Bowen said, I had no correspondence since October 17th, and then here we are. And so I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just, you know.
No, you're
I'm
okay.
looking out. You know, I was given a duty, and I'm looking out for that duty.
No,
Okay.
no, and I don't take offense to that, and I want to be clear with the board. I don't really know any more than what I told you on October 17th, is that we have cracks and we have a problem. What the person that came down and told us is, I really can't tell you anything else until I can do some more work. For them to do more work, we have to pay them.
So I just want to clarify before we move forward. So if this thing's extended to you to be able to hire whatever you need to hire to see what needs to be done next, then after that process is done, this person comes to you or this firm and they say, okay, this is the plan, we've got a plan. At that point in time, that's when that plan is submitted back with another RFQ or another submittal for construction companies to come back in, and then we as the board decide what construction company would be best to handle that job. Is that correct?
So all of that would have to end up going back through F&T, back through finance.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
I still have one more, just for clarification of what we're voting on. The RFP that Mr. Davidson shared with me showed that it closed yesterday. So theoretically, we already have the bidders, the qualified vendors for this particular RFP. So why do we not have that this evening to say, these
many
are
ven-
the
yeah.
numbers, these are the bidders, et cetera? We should have that information now, right?
So we could have, and Steve and I talked, but that would have violated an additional policy that did not allow you to have the information ahead of
Days ahead.
time.
4 days in advance. Do we have it right now?
We do. We have it submitted. We had one that was submitted by the deadline.
Only one bidder by the
Only
deadline.
one bidder by the deadline.
Then it's a moot issue.
So, where's your
RFP or not, we have one bidder qualified. Okay, sorry, all of that conversation to come down to one person wants the job.
Well, this is very easy to fix. Then the board, someone can make the motion that we waive the portion of policy 2335 that requires the meeting materials to come before the board 4 days in advance, and then we just vote on that one, and you wouldn't have this issue, am I correct?
That would be correct.
Okay,
Correct.
let's make it easy.
Maybe not.
Not quite.
Not quite correct.
Not quite. So that'll get you your architect that you're going to negotiate with. It doesn't get you a contract. The board doesn't have a contract to look at tonight, even though the RFQ is closed. And so the only way that Dr. Dawsonbeck can enter into that contract without coming back to the board for approval is to waive that $50,000 number. So you no longer may need to waive 90-10 in terms of the selection. You could do that because there is only one bidder, but in terms of forming a contract, that's not here. That's not before you, and we don't have that number.
You don't have a contract?
No.
I mean, and no estimate or anything? Okay.
But an estimate is not what you could approve. So what the waiver of policy 6420 would do is give him the authority to go over 50 if he needs to get that contract done. And
That's why I asked the estimate. If it's less than 50,000, we do not need to move forward. If it's going to be anything, the estimate is over 50,000, then we would have to have this conversation. So do you know what the estimate was?
my understanding, and check me on this, is that given that new drawings need to be done, it is going to be over 50. Is that your understanding from that conversation as well?
They've been in the price range of 60 to 70.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I call the question.
Okay, we have to vote on that as well. Do I get a second for calling the question?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, question is now called. Yes, we do. So, let's go back to your motion, if you do not mind.
Yes, ma'am. So I move that the Lee County Board of Education waive policies 9110 and 6420/8720 in order to expedite the architect selection and provide superintendent authority up to $100,000 for this specific contract only.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we have two opposed, but the motion passes. Okay, next we'll go into closed session. Who has that one?
I do.
Sandra, please.
Got it. I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session under North Carolina General Statutes 143/318.11, subsection A1 A3, and A6, to discuss confidential student information under North Carolina General Statute 115C-402, to discuss confidential personnel information under North Carolina General Statute 115C-319 and 115C-321, and to consult with the board's attorney and maintain the attorney-client privilege.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to closed session. The board is now back in open session. First, we will have an HR report.
Madam Chair, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the HR report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Madam Chair, because contract negotiations were completed in the last 24 hours, I move that the board waive the portion of Policy 2335 that requires meeting materials to be provided to board members 4 days prior to the meeting, and that the board approve the hiring of Chris Dawsonbach as superintendent, under the terms in the written contract as presented.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion has passed. And Christopher Dawsonbach, would you step forward, please? We just want to tell you how much we love you. Woo-hoo! We're so proud of you. Now, before you speak, we want the community to know that the board thoughtfully and carefully reviewed every application from a diverse field of 17 excellent candidates from 6 different states. Although many qualified candidates applied, the board felt that Dr. Dawsonbach's experience, leadership, and dedication to students and staff would best serve Lee County students, employees, and the community for years to come. The board is confident that Dr. Dawsonbach will lead our school system to even higher achievement. I can also say that what you don't know is I'm so proud of this board as well, the dedication, the hours. We didn't just take any person. They went 14 hours straight. I can tell you about the love and dedication of Dr. Dawsonbach. You may not know this today, but I assure you, I have put the challenge out there. I believe that Lee County is making history. Dr. Dawsonbach started out as a student and has progressed up to superintendent. With a short amount of time, I know he's only got 16 years, but we expect him to be here a long time. This relationship is going to be like a marriage. You're going to have good and you're going to have bad, but to death do us part. I am not going to hurt you, but now, come the 21st, just so you know, on the 21st is when his official swearing in will be. It will be in this building right here. Representative John Sauls, who is not only a House of Representative, he will be swearing him in, just like we talked about in marriage. Guess who did his marriage vows for both him and his wife, Daisy? John Sauls. So he will be here to swear you in. We have huge expectations for you. And I'm told that I think I cannot tell jokes about how big you are, but you have an even bigger heart. I just know that we are excited, the community is excited, and we want to celebrate with him on the 21st. Now, I would like to go around and see if anybody else would like to tell you something else. And they won't threaten you like me.
Chris, it is my distinct pleasure to have the opportunity to work with you. We've already worked together for many years, watching you move from the principalship into central office and see what you've done and the rapport that you've built with these very important people around you. I am so thrilled for the youth and the vitality and the vigor that we've seen here tonight, and I think you are the right man for the right job right now. Thank you for trusting us and applying to work with us. It's an exciting day in Lee County.
Mr. Dawsonbach, I want to congratulate you again. For me, I look forward to the progress that I believe we're going to make as a district with you leading the district moving forward. And I look forward to the challenges that we're going to face in that process and being able to work together as a team. So I really want to thank you again and thank you for applying. I had no doubt that you were, but you did, and that's great. And so I just wanted to thank you and congratulations.
No crying, Eric.
Come back to me, please.
Alan.
I'm bad on the spot, but Dr. Dawson-Bach, it's been great getting to work with you as interim superintendent. I think you've shown great leadership and poise and ability to make good decisions, given the information you've got at hand. And I look forward to working with you in the future as superintendent. I think we'll make a lot of good changes together.
Congratulations. I'm excited to work with you. I was excited to work with you as an interim. I'm double as excited to work with you as a full-timer. I do want to thank the board for doing the search. I think without that search, this could be construed as an easy hire. With the search, it's the right hire. And I think a unanimous vote is powerful. And I'm just excited. It's a great day for Lee County schools. And I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you.
It's okay, Patrick, you can cry.
I don't think there's anyone in this room that's known you longer than me. From growing up together and being in this building and being in this room when it was a media center, I wouldn't have graduated high school, college, or many other places if it hadn't been for you. And educators together, we've worked together. We've seen education grow from when we were students to when we worked side by side at Southern Lee and so forth. And, not only, to me, it's beyond the right choice, it's the only choice. And I've said that from day one, because I know what your value is in that heart, and I know what you did for me as a student, as a coworker, and what you do for this community and this district. It can't be summed up in words.
Back to you, sir.
Yep. I knew you were the right man from the very beginning, and I'm just honored to have been able to make this motion. And I want you to know that this board supports you. Thank you.
Are you okay? On a lighter note, we had one agreement or one request that I ask of a superintendent. Number one is no matter what your problem is, you bring it to us. We will work on it together. Number two, I don't like surprises. Number three, don't ever freaking lie to me. And number four, which I didn't expect to happen until after the superintendent search, and that was, could he please keep it in his pants? Now, we joke about this, but the reality is we know that Daisy would take care of that situation. And we are so proud of you. And that's what I love about this board, is that they're real, they're to the point, and without a shadow of a doubt, you are the only person for this job. This is your time. We love you.
Motion to adjourn.
Did you want to
Can
say
he
something?
talk first?
No.
No crying, no crying.
I didn't know all this was going to, I knew there was going to be a vote, but I didn't know we were going to do much talking tonight, so I didn't prepare anything. I'll have a lot more to say on the 21st, but I want to thank God for the opportunity and thank my family for the sacrifices that they've made to allow me to be able to do this work. Thank my staff and everybody that supported me along the way, and I want to thank the board for their confidence in me. I know we won't always have these warm fuzzies with one another, but hopefully at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree and do what's best for kids, because that's why we should all be doing what we're doing. I had no intentions of ever being in leadership. I had no desire or goal to ever become a superintendent. Folks saw things in me and encouraged me along the way, and we ended up here, and I would like to think it's for a reason. And I will do the very best I can as long as I feel like I'm making a difference. So thank you all. God bless you, and see you soon.
Okay, at this time, I will entertain Patrick's motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now adjourned. Thank you.